And welcome to tomorrow. My name is Jamie Higginbotham. Thank you all for joining us on this epic space week of epic epicness. I'm really excited to get started with this show. Obviously, we have a ton of launches coming up. We have got Starliner potentially this week. We have got Starship potentially this week. We have got an Electron rocket potentially this week. Like, if you are a space nerd, this is your week. It's going to be so epic, so awesome. And before we get started, I would love to ask the community just in the chat room. I just kind of want to get a general feel and see what we think. Which do you think will go first, Starship or Starliner? Because a simple weather scrub could push things around. So get those comments going down there. And in the meantime, as you're doing that, I do want to introduce some people into the show. Starting off, we've got a Jared Head coming in, and we'll be talking with Jared about. You got a bunch of stuff on here. You've got like. Well, in your notes, you've got Starliner's continued scrubs. I actually, I was passively watching it. Like I had the YouTube. I had Tim Dodd the Everyday Astronaut on in my back pocket, walking around site, and so I was like trying to listen but also work at the same time. So I know they scrubbed, but I don't know why. So we'll talk to you about that. As always, we also have our Dutta joining us, who will be punching all of the buttons, making things go. And because I posted it in the thing, if you go into the description down below, you're going to see a link to join us live. If you want to talk about Starliner and Starship, and you want to talk about the most epic week of epic epicness for space nerds, you can do that by clicking that EVMux join link down below. And we did have someone joining us. We've got Nick joining us as well, talking about all of the epic things. So I feel like we should just get started right off with the thing that we're all excited. Well, first off, I'm sorry. Before we do that, really quickly, one other vote. I need you guys to help me decide. And are we doing Cosmic Vibe or am I doing Galaxy Vibe? Vote below. Cosmic Vibe or Galaxy Vibe, and that will dictate my drink for the show. For you guys, though, what happened with Starliner? Like, I know we scrubbed at like T minus 3 minutes and something, but was it a valve again? What did we do?
No, so it was not a valve this time. It was a ground launch sequencer circuit board, specifically one of the three of them that controls the ground launch sequencer computers. And these computers, they control things like the retraction of the umbilicals, the power and fuel supply systems, firings of explosive bolts that free a rocket from a launch pad, and they've all got to be in perfect sync with each other for a countdown to proceed. And right at that T minus 3 minute 50 second mark, one of them became a little bit slower than the other two, and that was automatic hold. And when you're launching to the International Space Station, don't really have much of a launch window. So, unfortunately, that hold, in order to figure out what actually happened, caused them to have to scrub for the day. So, not a valve issue this time. It was a computer issue on the Atlas V. So this
What?
seems to be a bit of a interesting day, right? Or interesting mission, right? Because like the Atlas V's are being the problem here, not necessarily the Starliner in its capacity. So
It's not the meat bags either.
yeah, it's not them. They're not the problem. So
Or the
weird.
weather? Yeah,
Or
Yeah,
the
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 weather,
normal
weather.
yeah.
suspects. Yeah, exactly. Normal suspects. None of them. None of them. It's a little bit weird. I do feel like is this. There's something about. It feels like there's something weird about the software on the Starliner stuff. Like they seem to have really been struggling with software. Even if you go back to their demo flights, like it's just like these handshakes aren't working. And I understand that this was an Atlas V ground launch sequencer GLS issue. Was there anything custom? Do we know? Was there anything custom for Starliner that was put into the ground launch sequencer that maybe would have caused something? Or is this just like, just happened to be an Atlas V issue completely unrelated to Starliner?
I'd imagine my answer to that would be ITAR redacted. So, no, unknown, simply because that is probably proprietary beyond what you would believe.
I
So,
I want I wonder if they made extra layers of redundancy or security or something like that because they're flying meat bags compared to normal satellites and using their same old stock software that might be playing havoc with all of the rest of the GSE that doesn't know or doesn't care that there's a meat bag.
Yeah,
I'm confident Tori Bruno said something similar to that, which is that there are added layers of of redundancy and checks and other things because people are important, right? I would hope we all agree that people are important. I'm not discounting satellites or anything like that, but people kind of important. You don't want to lose any people.
The robot
Satellites can be
uprising.
replaced. People cannot.
The robot uprising will remember what you've said, Jared. You better watch out.
That's fine. Bring them on. Bring them on. I got two of them for them.
Yeah, as Michael says, I'm not superstitious, but this capsule does not want to fly. It's like the universe saying, seriously, don't fly this capsule. Uh, I don't know. I've been actually thinking a lot about this recently, and I certainly don't have answers with regards to the Starliner or anything else, but we build in redundancy into systems so that you can have a failure and continue to fly safely, right? So if you're like N+2 redundant or you've got a voting system, like the whole idea is to make sure that you've got the best data possible and the best chance of success. Something happened in NASA's culture post Columbia and Challenger. And I understand that this is Boeing and not NASA, but I think the cultures permeate each other. Something happened where you were it felt like they designed the shuttle to be like N+2, meaning you can have like you have multiple stages of failures and still have a successful string. Um, where if you were on the pad and you lost like one of your secondary redundancy, now you're N+1, so you still have redundancy. And back in the day, I think they still would have been go. They're like, okay, cool, that's what that redundant string is for. And now it feels like, no, we won't launch unless all redundancy is in place. And it's like, well, that all that's going to do is create more havoc and more problems. The point of the redundancy should be that you can still have a safe, successful mission and still launch, even if some of those strings go down. And I don't know, like if they've got a voting system where they got two computers and a third voting, and like, well, one of the computers is a little bit slow, that sounds to me like they're N+2, or at least they've at least got some redundancy there. Again, I don't know their systems, right? So I can't say with any level of certainty, but it feels like maybe they're just being overly cautious. Like, let's light this candle, let's go, right? Like, if you still have two systems, a primary and a redundant system, and your secondary redundant system's offline, then like you still have a redundant system. Let's go.
So I'd actually back them up on a three-part voting system with one failure not being redundant.
Yeah, I can see that because if
Yeah.
you lost the ability to vote.
Right, because if you have one that says A and then one that says B, you're not going to get an answer out of it because there's no tiebreaker, and that's the whole point of a three-part system. If this one says A and this one says A and this one says B, these two take it.
Yeah, I see that, but then aren't we just? I don't know, man. It's like there's a point where redundancy is in the way. There's a point where redundancy isn't doing what it needs to do.
This is ground side stuff anyway. So if they'd gone ahead
Totally
and
agree.
launched, it wouldn't have been a reduced redundancy in the launched vehicle. It would have been the problem would have been left behind on the ground. So it was very much a go no go decision. But Tory Bruno time and again says that it's different when they're a manned when it's a manned mission. They would have gone if it had merely been a satellite, he says.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but was the issue actually GL on the ground side, or was the issue with the Atlas V integrate in how it interacts with the GLS?
In the building at the bottom, that computer equipment was the triple redundant thing was all ground side, according to Tory Bruno when he gave his press conference.
Yeah, so that at this point, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I would have been like, send it, not my rocket.
Also, of course, there's so many parties involved because it's not just the launch company. It's Boeing, it's ULA, it's NASA, and I think in a sense, SpaceX has got more unified decision-taking capability because they're the launch of the capsule, they're everything. Obviously, NASA have got to agree, but they've got robust procedures. And for a start, the whole thing about the previous scrub, where in the case of SpaceX, you're refueling after the crew are on, you're fueling after the crew are on board, and you're still launching. So you're changing the status, the fuel status of the rocket as there are people on board. That's not necessarily unacceptably dangerous. It's just different from the way ULA do it. And ULA won't change the status, even though recycling the valve, as it turned out later, would have meant they could have just gone ahead. That's the previous scrub, not this last one.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe they're just adding extra complexity into the procedures just to make it feel safe, when in reality, all they're doing is adding extra complexity. There's a line, right? There's a line where it's just noise. It's not redundancy. It's not safer. It's just noise. You know, like
So,
they've.
contrary to your opinion, while NASA and ULA specifically has been historically more risk averse than how we've gotten used to seeing SpaceX do things. I think Tory and ULA are very, very conscious of the fact that if we have a vehicle failure or launch failure that results in a loss of life, that would be a very, very detrimental thing to all of the programs, not just this one.
Oh, I mean,
That's a
ignore the
huge,
program. You just don't want loss of life, right? You cannot replace
but
human life.
that's a huge responsibility in a time where the space industry is gaining more and more visibility in the public eye, and still fighting for dollars to be able to execute missions and do the exploration things that we all love so much. And if there's a mishap that results in loss of life, that would be detrimental to all of that, not just for ULA, not just for NASA, but to all of the industry and to all of spaceflight. And I think that's a big, heavy burden. And Tori and crew are more cautious than other companies may have or would have been in that situation.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I do think, and actually, Mystic Wolf says it really well, which is redundancy has diminishing returns fairly fast. And I think that's really the only point I'm trying to make is like maybe they've gone a little bit too far
Sure.
in, trying to figure out all of it. There's a line. And it's very easy to cross that line where it's just like this doesn't make sense anymore. So. Not to harp on them, I'm very, very, look, at the end of the day, what this ended up doing is creating a moment for us where we could potentially have Starliner, Starship, and Electron all like back to back to back. Like, it's going to be, man, the adrenaline we're going to get next week, just injected right into the space nerd vein, right? It's going to be so cool. It's going to be really, really awesome, barring weather or anything else. So, like, you know, blah blah blah, delays and yeah. But now we got a really cool moment potentially happening, and I'm excited for that really cool moment.
Cressida
Oh,
has another point that I didn't think of. Because of Boeing's involvement, I don't think they can afford any risk at all.
yeah, yeah. But if there's no risk, I mean, if they can afford no risk, they can't fly ever. There's
Oh,
there
okay,
is
they can't afford any mishaps.
yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong. Like, but they put themselves in that position, right? So it's interesting how the pendulum swings too far in each direction, right?
Hmm.
Like there's a beautiful balance in the middle, but we'll see. All
It's
right,
hard.
uh,
It's hard to keep.
what are we thinking around the room? What are we thinking for the Starliner's next attempt? Like, we feel like the valves are good at this point. We feel like they've flushed out the issues on Starliner and NASA. There was an issue, and NASA was like, no, you're good to go. So you thinking, barring weather, next week's looking good? Or I guess later this week? Jared, I'll start with you.
Yeah, they should, with that analysis and the testing that they're going to be doing to make sure everything works, and like was mentioned in our chat room, you need a flawless mission at this point, or at least as close to flawless as you can get. Yeah, I think we're going to finally see it go.
Uh, Dada, how about you?
It sounds like they're getting their stuff together. If they can figure out what their software issues are, it sounds like NASA's like you're good to go with the helium leak. So yeah, seems like it's right around the corner.
All the astronauts will talk like this.
Is that
Nick,
an
how about you?
anomaly?
I'm confident it will
I think
go.
I think there's a helium leak, guys.
Yeah.
Huh?
It, it's going to go, Jamie, and I can say that without a high-pitched, squeaky voice. But I do think it raises then the next interesting question, because they've got a contract for 6, and the idea is they're going to be alternate 6 monthly with SpaceX. So they're starting maybe in 2025, doing an annual one, and they've got 6. 2025. When's the ISS supposed to come crashing down? I don't think they'll make their 6 years worth, which means that they owe NASA some launches to something, but it won't be the ISS.
Let's put a pin in that for a moment. Also, I see Zach has arrived. So, assuming Zach has been listening, let's add Zach into the mix. Zach, what do you think? What's the chance of next week?
Uh, I think the big one we'll know about is how big of the issue this chip was. I think that was a part that got slipped in by Tori during the press conference after, is that it's either something really easy to fix in the building, or if they have to change some batteries and stuff to make it happy, it's a 10-day rollback. And so it's either really fast, we're back in a couple of days when we have an opportunity, or we're talking a couple of weeks, which then starts raising questions. Are we affecting the ISS schedule again? Which
So,
is really busy.
I don't think we covered that, and I don't think I understood that, by the way. Also, from the Launchpad network. So, if you want to do a really quick promo for Launchpad, and so people can follow you there.
Sure, just on YouTube, the Launchpad, we cover launches live, and we believe that space is better together. Key thing why I love this show.
Awesome, awesome, great, real, brilliant. So, what was the chip issue? I don't think we covered that. Well, like
It was
we were saying,
the in the building down at the base, what you guys were talking about.
okay, but
It
like,
was He said it's one specific processor that was in the base of the rocket in the little building, which is why they can't go out to it, because it's considered a no-go when the fueling's happening. Which
okay,
was, they were saying they could have had an opportunity today, but the issue is they had to have had that building cleared by X hour this morning, and people back on console so many hours before that, that even at the press conference it seemed pretty unlikely we were going to get a chance today. But he didn't go into it, but he said if for some reason they need to change a battery of something, they're talking a 10-day rollback to the VIF. And then no one questioned him about it. Everyone was more focused on the scrub.
yeah,
So
because
we didn't get a
that
lot of
doesn't make
detail.
any sense. Because like, if you think about this, if it's in the building, why would you need to roll back?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It makes me wonder if there's more that we aren't being told about, which feels kind of normal with this whole mission and vehicle and combo.
Wait, are you
So
guys saying that they don't know why it would have to roll back if it doesn't launch coming up?
Yeah.
I might have missed it, but I
Oh,
didn't catch it when it happened.
the batteries for the flight termination system would need to be swapped out and put back in.
Got it.
That's what it
Okay.
is. So
Got
yeah.
it. It's an FT. So that's right. The FTS batteries are running, and there's an expiration time on those batteries and flight
Yep.
termination system. That makes sense as to why you'd have to roll back. So they're up against the clock for FTS batteries, and that also makes sense as to why it's difficult to get into the building because they do have armed charges on the pad, even if the rocket is not fueled. There are miniature, we'll call them little bombs for lack of a better term, sitting on the rocket. Well, I mean, right? I mean, it's designed
Yeah,
to
no, you're
destroy the
not wrong.
rocket. Yeah, yeah. So, like, okay,
Wait,
okay.
wait, you're not supposed to approach a rocket that's got fuel in it?
No, wait, Dada.
Don't ask NASA.
Dada. No, 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 Dada. Bad Dada. Don't approach your fueled rocket, Dada.
How do you disconnect the fuel lines?
Usually you launch. Wait,
You
what?
need 3 ground launch sequencers to do
You
that.
use a valve.
Dada.
Explosive bolts.
Dada. Dada. What have you
That's
done?
not the way. That's not the way we did it.
Cool, cool story, Dada. Man, is this? I won't go into it. Well, you know what? Hang on. This is
Is
post
this a
show.
members show thing
yeah, oh,
you're talking
yeah,
about,
yeah,
or
yeah.
is this a
Disconnecting
all of my best work is under
fuel
NDA
lines.
situation?
All of my best work is under NDA.
All right, so it sounds like to me, and thank you everyone for cleaning up, because again, I had my phone in my back pocket. I was trying to follow along, and actually, here's a really fun thing is, a lot of people view, how do I word this? There's so many fanboys, right? There's like the SpaceX fanboys, you got the SLS fanboys, you got, everyone chooses a team and whatever, and like, this is my team, this is my side. But like when you work in aerospace, we cheer everyone on, right? Like we were all listening to Starliner, like going like, yeah, let's go, let's do this, light this candle, let's make this happen, woo! And like, we don't work for them. We like, but like,
That's because most of us have at some point.
but like, we're all excited for each other, and then you go out of aerospace, and it's like everyone's just like harping on everyone else, like SLS is the best, and whatever one's stupid. It's like, no, man, they're all awesome. What are you talking about? They're all epic. They just, yeah, they're bringing
We're
out
all
the ground
going.
umbilical carrier plate.
We all really do have a common goal, and it's a worthy goal that all of us are pursuing. And if you're doing that and you're doing it in a safe manner, there's nothing stopping us from cheering you on from doing that. Seriously, I mean, I have never met anyone in the aerospace world who's like, oh, specific company B, like I can't deal with them, or company X, I can't deal with them, and all of their equipment or crap or stuff like that. Like we're all in this together. We all know that if one of us has a bad day, like Donna was saying earlier, if one of us has a bad day, all of us get put under the microscope for a bad day. So,
But also, all ships rise with the tide.
Yes, that
When we
too.
have a good day, we all have a good day, right?
Yeah.
Like, we want to create a cislunar economy. We want to get humans, all of us, everyone at every company wants to get humanity off of Earth and doing cool things in space, things you can't even imagine today. Also, Dada, really quickly, how do you get fuel off the vehicle? Surely, you could use a ground umbilical carrier plate. Sorry, inside joke. I
I,
shouldn't have done an inside joke, but like, yeah.
I
All right.
suppose you could if it worked.
Fighting words, Donna. Fighting words. All right. Let's. So we've talked about Starliner, which, if the schedule holds, I believe goes first, assuming no rollback for FTS batteries, assuming no weather issues, right? And they are launching out of Florida, so like, anyone looking at the weather recently? Like, how is next week? Other than hot, we know that.
Well, we got
Their
hurricane season
summer
officially
stuff doesn't
starting,
seem to
so
have shown up yet, like the afternoon storms yet. So that's helpful, I guess, but they're waiting for it to show up. On the Starliner thing, one thing I found interesting, and maybe it's a reason it didn't go. They didn't stop and look at their rocket, which I found quite odd. You know, every
They
astronaut
did,
team stops, gets out, does the awkward
yeah,
lean
does
back.
the lean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't do that yesterday. They went straight to the elevator, and I think it's because one of them needed a bio break because he went up that elevator very quickly and straight into the bathroom. But
Oh.
maybe the ground sequencer was offended that they didn't stop and admire the vehicle.
We need a little porta potty right by the GLS building that is having the issues. Is
ah
it?
yes,
They say building. I assume it's just their iBay.
the last honey bucket.
All right, cool. So in theory, Starliner goes first, and then shortly after Starliner, like within 24 hours, Starship Flight 4. I almost said Flight 6.
Yay.
we skipped a few. Starship Test Flight 4. What are our thoughts on Flight 4? And all right, who wants to run this part? Jared, can I give it to you?
Sure, why not?
Great. Jared, ready, go.
Thank you. All right, so we've got Starship Flight 4 coming up. We were having a fun discussion before the start of the show as to what the actual name should be, and I think we'll go to the members show for that. So kind of want to go around the screen that we have here, and let's start. Nick, what are we thinking about Flight 4 here? What is Starship going to be doing on this? What's our thoughts about this?
I think it's going to get delayed. I don't think it'll take place on the 6th. It was on the 5th. It got delayed to the 6th. I'm running out of weekday calculation. I'm retired now, so weekdays, weekends, they lose sort of consistency. But I think is that a Friday? Well, no, that's Thursday. The 6th is a Thursday, so I think either Friday or Monday. I don't think they go at the weekend. And I think, are you asking how far will it get this time?
Yeah, well, I
Um,
mean, our big question is always like what is it going to accomplish in terms of everything that's on the line for
yeah.
it? Is it actually going to fulfill all of those objectives? Are we going to need to do it again on
Well,
Flight 5? Are we working our way piecemeal? Are we going to get the whole dang thing in one shot this time? Like, what's up? What are we
well,
going to see?
I think the booster will not collide with its hot staging ring. I think the hot staging ring will come off cleanly. I think the booster will get down much better than it. Well, it got very close. It was just going a bit fast. I think it'll be going slightly slower this time, but I'm not sure it'll actually succeed in hovering before it sinks into the Gulf. But as far as the ship is concerned, I think the ship will get further. But I think this is hugely the big test of the thermal protection system, isn't it? Because they put a lot more effort into trying to get it all perfect. Where previously they must have been skeptical about whether they get that far, so they didn't put quite so much effort into it. So this one, I think, has got a real good chance of slowing down to terminal velocity. The flip maneuver they've done before, but I don't think that's any guarantee that that will work. But it's almost the icing on the cake, isn't it? Because if they don't get the flip maneuver sorted on a zero velocity descent, touchdown, water down, then they'll just sort that the next time.
Definitely. All right. And then we had it seemed like some chat room. Charvale saying launching Flight 6 before Flight 4 is honestly something SpaceX would do. Yeah, sounds about right. And let's face it, NASA also mixed up their STS numbers. So, hey, it's tradition. It's
That
tradition for a winged vehicle with a thermal protection system on the bottom to mix up its flight numbers. So, Donna, so you're our resident shuttle expert. So, please speak. I felt like you were just about to
I
verbally smack me down there.
no, they did in fact do that, but the reason was not because uh, I have to do some digging for that. Actually, they did do that, but I don't think it was like this vehicle is more advanced and we're gonna switch them. It was more like what's on the books and delays in processing way
Yeah,
before vehicles were ready.
it was more operational schedule based than just like, hey, I want to throw whatever numbers out there based.
They
Um,
had they had they had smart mission labels that kind of confuse things as well.
yeah, it's like when you're at the airport. Some flights get delayed and some don't, and that doesn't necessarily, and they have to accommodate that. It's just in this case, it was space vehicles and payloads and other
Yeah,
magical things happening there. I do also want to point out something too that Sakura's Light has in a comment as well, which is that it wasn't just Shuttle that did the funny number system thing. Voyager 2, by the way, launched before Voyager 1 did, in case anybody was wondering. So, great point there, Sakura's Light, as we sort of lean into this joke a little too much. So, uh, I'm going to go ahead and ask that the comment there from Sakura's Light be removed because, Zach, I'm going to ask you about Flight 4 here. What you thinking? What you feeling? What you think we gonna see?
I think it all comes down to the tiles and if they're ready to go or not. I think the fact that Elon's publicly stated that there's a large portion of this, if they lose one, it's not going to work, and if they lose two in a few other areas, it's not going to work. Kind of really shows that the shuttle system, I feel like we trusted a bit more. Whether we should have smartly or not, that's a question. But I think they're still figuring out how to keep these on for as long as they need. This ship goes through a lot of dramatic phases and dynamic phases during flight with a lot of rolls and moving. So it really comes down to that point of if they can keep the heat shield intact to make an attempt, and if they can keep the heat shield down. They didn't do that last time. They rolled like a sausage. So I think they would have got further last time if they were able to have stayed down. Um, so that's ultimately the thing. I think the boot. I'm confident in the booster. I think it got far. If they can solve the issue with why the engine didn't relight, which I haven't dived too deep into if we know why or not, but I think if they've solved that issue, it seems like it was going to work. It did its burns that it was supposed to. It just didn't have all the engines it was supposed to. So I'm hopeful because that means we get to see something exciting, hopefully in Fight 5 or 6 with a catch attempt. depending what's happening with all of the pads and everything. But yeah, I think it comes down to the ship. And I think also if they can prove that they can do a deorbit burn, even if it's expendable, it raises the question, at what point do they have to start doing expendable Starship missions? Starlink is so requiring of Starship to meet its requirements and its deadlines of getting all of its payloads to orbits for its frequencies that, though Starship, yes, will be a reusable vehicle that changes our future, it might need to be expendable for them to start getting their other things which help fund the new spacecrafts and the new missions. And if they can prove that re-entry, I don't see why there's a reason they couldn't start doing expendable missions. And if they could recover the booster, but it's just the ship that's expendable, it's kind of like a big Falcon at that point.
Yeah, I was gonna say Ekka's got a great point in the chat room there, which is attitude control. That is a big ship. I think we see images of Starship Super Heavy, the full stack, and we don't really comprehend just how big it is, because Starship is bigger than the full space shuttle stack itself. Like shuttle plus external tank plus boosters, like it's longer than that.
You
It's
can't comprehend it
gigantic.
standing under it,
No,
I mean,
especially since there's
it's
nothing
longer.
around it.
It's longer than the Saturn V was, and the Saturn V was much longer than shuttle.
one of the things I always loved to do when I had friends visiting Los Angeles was take them to the California Science Center to see Endeavor, because one of the first things that people would always say when they saw a shuttle was, "Oh my God, this thing is friggin' huge!" Like you don't realize just how big that vehicle is, which leads to the complexities of it. Especially because finest design of 1970s, but at the same time, dang, it's a big vehicle, and you realize this thing's got to be moving, 8 kilometers per second in order to do its job, and there's a lot of things that got to go right, and there's plenty of things that can go wrong. So yeah, to me, getting Starship oriented at reentry is I feel like, going to be possibly a bigger challenge than the thermal protection system. But before I jump into my thing there, in my sort of agreement with Eka, Dada, let's go to you real quick before I officially decide to chime in.
Hold on one second, just so you understand.
Sure, let's take a look at the stacks here.
And that's version 1.
True. That's going to be going...
Add another quarter.
Yeah.
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 This is the attitude. Attitude control is a big deal.
Yeah. And copy that, Jamie. We see it. Yeah, it's big. So, yeah, very, very cool. All right, Dada, tell us. Speak.
Yes? What was the question?
Flight 4. What are we looking at this week? Is it gonna happen? What's gonna happen? What you feeling?
Sure, why not? How far they're gonna get? I feel like they're not quite to the point of getting zero velocity at splashdown yet. I think something else will come up, and then they'll have to do another one.
All right. Is that the summation of your feelings about it? Okay. Yeah.
That is the extent of my knowledge. Yes.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll roll with that. Honesty is the best policy on that front. For me, I think we'll probably see a slip of a few more days just because licensing and things like that. I haven't heard anything personally, either publicly or off public, about licensing. I mean, if it was off public, I wouldn't be talking about it anyhow. Yeah, I have not heard anything about the licensing coming down the pipeline from the folks who are in charge of that. But I do hope that we get to see it pretty soon. It would be epic if we had Starliner and Starship fly on the same day. What an amazing day that would be. That's like the past weekend where we had Monaco Grand Prix, Indy 500, and Coca-Cola 600 on the same day. That's like the Super Bowl of racing. So to me, that would be that would be the Super Bowl of spaceflight happening on that day. It would like be if shuttle launched and then a Soyuz launched and then a Shenzhou launched on the same day. Like, holy moly, there's just so much going on.
Give it a few years, and it probably will once we get a couple more private stations up there.
I really hope so. It would be fantastic to see daily crewed launches. I think I'll go out there and I'll say by 2035, I think we will be seeing daily crewed launches to space. I'll go ahead and be optimistic on that front. By the end of my personal decade from this point, we'll set that up. But we're talking about Starship right now, Flight 4. So to me, I think the booster is going to go farther than it did last time. So I really want that soft splashdown, but I don't think it's going to get it. I think we're going to get a gentle splashdown, but not gentle enough to be considered a like zero velocity. I don't want to call it a suicide burn because it is 0-0 like on the money for landing with a lot of them, but I think it's just going to have a little too much downward velocity. It's going to hit the ocean a little too hard, but I feel it's going to get so much closer than the last flight. And then Starship, I think is going to make it, I will say, about halfway through re-entry. They really have stepped up the thermal protection system game on this. That is always, I hope, Dutta, I think you can attest to this, which is that my biggest beef with Starship has always been that it didn't seem like they were taking their thermal protection system seriously, and that it was just an afterthought, and that it was just, put the tiles on, if it works, it works, if it doesn't, if he dies, he dies. With that there.
SpaceX is a very first principles engineering company. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't need to be there, we're not going to put it on there until we figure out, oh crap, that actually did need to go on there. If you're not breaking something, you're not trying hard enough. And to the extreme exploration mentality, I agree with that. However, it does create more risk, and many companies are not willing to, or for many reasons can't accept taking that risk. So similar to the water deluge system on the concrete launch pad, right? They figured, oh, we don't need that. Our analysis shows blah 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 blah, and then it happened, and you got concrete everywhere, and everything was destroyed. Oh, okay, maybe we do need that. That makes sense. So SpaceX absolutely corrects their mistakes, and while they're doing everything they can to get every bit of performance out of all of the engines, the propellant that they're able to load, etc., by removing things that historically we've grown accustomed to, and all of the industry is like, no, you actually need that. SpaceX is taking steps to say, well, do we? And not only that, but they're actually proving it. So rather than just claiming that they don't, or saying that it would be a good idea if they tried it without, they're actually trying it without. They're actually making those changes, and testing and testing and testing and validating that whether they actually need something or not. And I think that's absolutely commendable, and it's many data points, not only for them, but for the entire industry as a whole. And their progress is always in steps, and there's always something that they try and then they fix, and then they try and then they fix. And I think that's awesome, because it gives the rest of the world, and it gives the rest of the industry, and it gives all of us a better understanding of all of the mechanics that you actually need in order to be able to perform a launch. That said, they step through all of their issues, and they never make the same mistake twice.
Yeah, and thank you, Detta, for basically correcting me and saying it much better than I was saying it on air. So I appreciate that with it. And also, as we were having our discussion, Jamie did gift 50 memberships in our chat. So we just want to say, hey, everybody, welcome. If you've become a member of Tomorrow, or if you are a member of Tomorrow, thanks for being a member. And don't forget to join us in our members only show, which will be immediately after this one. Where we're going to talk about some really cool stuff today. Maybe quite literally with it. But I'm looking forward to that thermal protection system. I want to see how it works because this, like you said, Dutta, it wasn't necessarily because they didn't care. It was more just the focus was in different places. Much better said than I was saying there. So now that there is focus on thermal protection system, I'm really interested to see how far it's going to go with it. And I am also interested to see if Elon's saying that losing one is enough to doom the vehicle essentially really actually does hold up. Because Shuttle, there were several missions where Shuttle lost a lot, like STS-27. I believe that was 200 tiles on the, I would say, starboard forward side of the shuttle, but in that area at the beginning of the double delta wing on the bottom of the chine in the front there. Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens. And either way it goes, I'm excited, and I cannot wait for this flight. I don't know if I'm going to get up to watch it in real time just because I got to sleep. But we'll catch the highlights afterwards. But I want to see reentry plasma again. That was amazing. I don't know if that was our first time seeing reentry plasma in real time like that, but I feel like that was astonishing. I'm still blown away by the imagery from Flight 3's attempted reentry, and just being able to see the plasma interacting with the vehicle. And I'm sure the aerodynamicists and the thermal protection system people were doing cartwheels and backflips and front flips all over the place, getting to see that in real life. So that was astonishing with that there. So there you go. Flight 4 looking to be super exciting. I am stoked beyond belief, and if we have Starliner on the same day and we have a back-to-back launch, man, let me tell you, I'm gonna bust out the nacho cheese and get the tortilla chips ready to go and crack open a Topo Chico and make it happen. So I'm excited. So cool. So
what else are we talking about?
I think we're good for Mom to come back if she wants to. So but I do have something to talk about besides Starliner, if you
Yeah, go for it.
to know about it, because just about my gosh, what was it? Yesterday, I think, right? We had Chang'e 6 land at the lunar South Pole. So China's second sample return mission from the moon landed at the lunar South Pole. Now, they did Chang'e 5 several years ago, which landed on the far side of the moon. So first time anybody had landed on the far side of the moon. And in addition to that, first time we had a sample return from the far side of the moon, and the first time China returned a sample from the moon as well. Well, now we've got another one, and I'm trying to pull up the video of the landing here, so that way everybody could take a really cool view of it. I'll get it started back at the beginning, but yeah, Chang'e 6 landing successfully in the South Pole Aitken Basin of the moon. Now they're going to kind of figure out where they want to grab the sample from over the next week, and then get it on a little rocket and send it back here to Earth, and we'll be able to analyze.
That was a hell of a landing. They stopped at zero velocity. Holy crap!
Yeah.
That is clearly
So
not. Whoops.
So obviously this has been sped up. So I'm going to slow it down a little bit there. But yeah, about 100 meters above the surface of the Earth, it did a hazard avoidance maneuver. Did I say 100 meters above the surface of the Earth? 100 meters above the surface of the moon. They did a hazard avoidance maneuver to make sure that everything that they could land on top of and tip over on was not there, and then came down nice and slowly. And I think you see that really well because it kind of threads a needle between several craters in that area. So look at that. You can see there's a nice flat patch with some craters around it, and there it goes, threading that perfectly right between them. So yeah, some very complex guidance, navigation, control technology for you to be able to do something like that. But there you go.
Neil would be proud.
I was just gonna say they call their GNC system the Neil Armstrong.
That's incredible, and it's a
Yeah.
big contrast because you can when Apollo 11 was landing, uh, they had a bunch of obstacles that they needed to avoid, and they at one point they actually sped up so that they could actually clear everything, and come down to land on a place that was relatively empty, and that that landing system just went right here. That was
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yo, this looks good. I'm gonna sit down right here. Kind of with
That's
that.
some cartoon moon landing shit right there.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's sometimes how I sit in movie theaters. Like I find that really good seat, and I'm just like going over and then plop down immediately on it. So, because I mean, none of us do a ballistic curve to sit down somewhere, right? I hope you don't do ballistic curves to sit down somewhere.
No, I kind of want to.
I mean, you could, but you also could hurt yourself or destroy the chair.
I'm getting to the age where I have to turn around 3 times before I sit.
I can cite a cinematic ballistic chair for sitting, or ballistic curve for sitting in a chair, and it's known as the Will Riker.
Oh, that we'll take that. Yeah, You're right. You're correct.
Yep.
This
Jamie,
is why you watch. This is why you watch this show right here, is for these moments.
This is one of the times I get to say, Jamie, you're right and I'm wrong. So yeah.
I've been messing with the layouts in the show because it's been driving me crazy. I just so everyone knows why I'm doing this. So we go to this layout, and then you bring up a banner, and it covers up the face, and it's driving me bonkers. And so my hope is that if we do this and bring up a banner, okay, well, Nick can gnaw on the side of the banner.
Yeah. Here's a snack.
They need to
Nick.
raise the It's been It's been driving me bonkers. So I'm sorry. So successful landing. That's
Yes.
hard to do, by the way.
Very. And that's fully
Legit.
autonomous as well. So it's figuring it all out on its own. So
And they're not going slow. They started drilling in less than 8 hours because they're only supposed to be on the surface for 48 hours.
They're cooking. So
I mean, once you land, it's game on, right?
you kind of want dust and stuff to settle down, simply because I don't know what propellants they're using. I think it's probably hydrazine. I would imagine some sort of monopropellant allowing them to do that.
What is it going to catch fire in the atmosphere of the studio? Moon?
No, but you don't want to.
Oh my God. No. I had that conversation with someone yesterday. Legitimately, I had to talk to someone yesterday because I'm driving my Cybertruck around town, and for everyone, it's purple and it's a Cybertruck. Well, it's polychromatic purple Cybertruck, so it catches your eye. It's definitely a look at me vehicle, right? And so I parked at Starbucks because I wanted to get off base for a minute, and I wanted my Starbies, right? And I'm sitting down. I'm a social person. Everyone's talking about it. I'm like, yeah, it's my truck. And so I got talking to a couple other guys. Legitimately, one of them, honest to God, was a flat earther. Yep. And so we're talking about no, the Earth is not flat. He's like, well, no, it's like a half dome. I'm like, no, it's not a perfect sphere. It's a little eggish, but it has a bottom. It has a bottom. Well, where's the filament? Nope. And then we got onto moon landings. So it's a thing. Just saying. We can joke about it. It is fun to joke about, but people actually think that.
Well, the new movie Fly Me
Yeah,
to the Moon is not going to help that situation either when that
What's
comes
the
out.
movie?
The one that they filmed a movie, I think it was last summer and a half ago at NASA, at the press site, at the pad, at the VAB, helicopters. They filled the entire press site with old vehicles. Yeah, the trailers come out and we now all know what the movie's about. It's not about the story like a love rom-com about launching a guy to the moon. It's a love rom-com of two people working in a studio because NASA's not sure the moon landing's going to work. So the whole story of them having a backup studio just in case, because we can't sacrifice the public pressure of failing this.
Ooh, now hang on, but that's actually an interesting idea. Maybe they did. I'm not saying we didn't go to the moon. I'm saying
Was there
maybe
a
we had a backup. Mm-hmm.
I would
That's
argue
an
that I would argue your best movie technology at the time was 2001: A Space Odyssey, and how realistic do the moon scenes in that look? Not very
well.
realistic.
That's because they.
So,
Oh no! See, now I was gonna make the joke, and I was just scolding you guys for making the joke. So like, do as I say, not as I do.
But if SpaceX ever had such an event or a plan, somebody would have to be in charge of that. Somebody with the qualifications that we know and love. But of course, they'd have to kill us before they'd admit it ever happened.
I'm just saying for that many people to be able to keep that big of a secret for this long a period of time is
We,
impossible if improbable if not impossible.
It doesn't stop
impossible.
them trying it in the future, though, does it? I mean, hope springs eternal, etc. They still think they can get away with pulling the wool over our eyes in future, even if they know it never worked in the past.
Wait, say
Just
that
because,
again?
well, just because they didn't clearly fake the Apollo landings because it would have come out by now if they had, that doesn't mean they won't try it in the future.
Oh, they won't. Like SLS, no. SLS is look. If they were gonna fake it, SLS would be a far more successful rocket.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like it
ow,
would have launched on
ow,
time, or
ouch.
at least close to on time.
And they can
Ooh.
and they can fake it a hell of a lot better now than they could have back then.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, and
No,
Starliner would have been
no.
launching every week.
All right. Wow, we got way off topic. Hang on,
Yeah,
let me look at
ouchies.
other. That was my fault because I just remembered I had this flat Earth conversation legitimately yesterday. Like this is a legitimate, and I did not cede. I was not like, oh yeah, no, maybe. Just stop the conversation. I was like, no. Here's how you're wrong. He's like, well, what about that? I'm like, nope. Here's how that's wrong, and here's how you can prove it. I gave him nothing. All right. What else do we have here? Oh, since we're talking about the moon, I think we'll just end. Yeah, we've only got a few minutes left in the show, but we'll end on somewhat sad news because I was really excited for this. Uh, I'm not sure I can talk about this, and I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on it, but y'all hear about the Dear Moon announcement?
Hmm.
Uh, who can I hand the baton to? I think I need to turn it because it is related to SpaceX. So who can I hand the baton to?
Sure. There's not a
Zach,
lot.
yeah, I appreciate you, Zach.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a ton of it. MZ put out a statement on X yesterday. It was yesterday, I think, kind of out of nowhere to kick off June 1st, saying that they are canceling the Dear Moon mission. And there's been quite a response from a number of the crew members. Fair. I think there's a lot more questions than answers on what's all happened with it, and a lot of disappointment. But I think one of the big things, I took from this is, though that mission's not happening, it still has made a lot of inspiration and impact. It was the first mission of this type. There will be missions like this now in the future because Dear Moon started that conversation. And I think there's a lot of new people that got into space because of it. I mean, it was an open call, a couple million people applied. Like, that's a crazy thing for those that were a part of that in any phase to have had that chance. And they haven't gone, but Starship isn't ready. And I think, it would have been a hard thing saying, no, we're going to wait 10 years. I think that's a fair statement that, you're going to wait that long, or 5 years, or however long it's going to be. So definitely disappointing. But I would hope the crew holds onto it and uses it, because I think it's a big inspirational point that there's still a lot that can come out of Dear Moon. But yeah, no more Dear Moon, unfortunately.
It's kind
Yeah.
of interesting. I'm curious if there were any clauses about launch delays in their launch contract that would prevent MZ from actually canceling this. But at the same time, like SpaceX didn't come through, right? They were supposed to launch in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, and here we are past 2023, and they didn't launch.
Well, I know
So I think
one
that's
of the
totally
crew on
fair.
X brought up that if they pulled out, there were major financial penalties for them.
Yeah.
Now the question is, some of these people have, in a way, reset their life and replanned their life around it, and now this isn't happening. What do they get a certificate of participation? Like, is there anything on kind of their part that, you know, I think Tim's message, for those that have read it, if you haven't, it's incredibly well written, and incredibly raw. And I think that's pretty powerful for him to be that outspoken about raw emotion in this type of situation that was very fresh. But, you know, you reshaped your future plans around you're going to go see the moon. How do you move on from
And
that?
and there's expenses incurred in that, right?
Yeah.
Like it costs money to change your life around. It costs money to move to a different location because that's where you need to be in order to be able to do training and things like that in anticipation of this. So it's a financial burden for everybody all around. I don't imagine they got paid anything yet for not doing anything. So that's kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, yeah, MZ is totally within his right to pull out because they haven't executed that contract.
Yeah, someone in the chat room was saying that it seemed like once MZ took a Soyuz flight, it kind of scratched the space itch for him, and that's kind of how I felt about it. Was that he was doing that to kind of get originally to get the experience of space flight, get some time in space under your belt. Just like if you're a pilot, you want to get time, maintain your piloting skills and keep those abilities up. But it also does seem like with the delays and everything that maybe MZ was just like, I went to orbit, good enough for me. So, and I'm cutting off funding or whatever I've got left in terms of the payments from here, washing my hands of it. Bye, everybody. So
I can understand why Elon accepted the deal, but I don't. I think it was naive of sorry, is it MK to
MZ.
have gone into the deal that early in the development cycle. I think there will be other benefactors who will do something similar, but I think they'll keep their mouths shut until the Starship is proven and is getting close to being human rated. Of course, there are always the options of using Dragon to get the crew up there. So to that extent, if Starship launch is not yet and landing is not quite yet human rated, I can still see that as for the SLS or the Artemis mission, there's no plan to launch or land astronauts on the Starship, only to carry them to the moon, land on the moon, 16G and so on. So I think there will be replacement successor type projects like this. I just think they won't get announced now until there's more visible progress and a more credible timeline possible to create.
Well, I will say that in late 2022, Dennis Tito is actually the first space tourist to fund himself to fly to space back in 2001. So a while ago, he announced that him and his wife were lined up at that time to be the second crew to fly on a Starship around the moon on a free return trajectory. So does that move? I don't know if that's still in place, and if so, does that now move Dennis and his wife up to be the first people to fly on Starship on that free return trajectory? So
Maybe they can buy the first one on a discount. It wasn't just
MZ. So there were they got him, and then I don't know, they might be able to sweet talk Jared Isaacman into maybe doing it. I mean, he already says he wants to do the first crewed flight. More power to him on that. But I don't know, maybe you buy 5 flights and you get a 6th free. So we'll have to see.
Well, I guess I don't have an answer for it, but I guess maybe a question for the room would be if he still wanted this to happen, but it's just we don't have a definite timeline, which is hard to build your life around not knowing when something's going to happen years and years out. Would you rather have him come out saying we have an indefinite date so that the website wasn't out of date saying they were launching in 2023 and you just know what's going to happen, or would you rather it be canceled and have to wait for another opportunity? Because some of the crew seem to be like they would have rather just said, oh, my life's on hold until it's ready.
If I had been a member of the crew, I would have been A-OK waiting. So I'll wait an indefinite amount of time for my shot at a lunar mission. So.
Wait until it's safe.
Yeah, you might not get a consensus from everybody on that though.
Yeah. Well, then replace the people who don't.
All right. I feel like we're kind of coming to the end of that. So yeah, thank you everyone for the conversation. Sorry for having to leave every time we talk about SpaceX, but dem is the rules. And also thank you everyone so much for joining us on today's episode. It was hopefully you guys had a lot of fun. I enjoy having a lot of people here in the conversation, getting all of the different viewpoints, and I am super stoked for next week. Starliner launching, Starship launching, Electron launching. Everyone's launching. It's going to be epic. And if you want to watch those launches, uh, Zach's website, the Launchpad, just go to youtube.com, search for the Launchpad. He will. Zach, you're going to be broadcasting them all, right? I know those feels. I know those feels. He's a great resource, and it's if you go to the Launchpad and you don't want to like have to go to all the individual areas where like go to ULA's website or SpaceX's or all the different sites that have all the different things. The Launchpad is a great place that'll funnel all of those launches for you in one location, so you can just follow him and his team, and it's just a great place to get your launches. Also, for all the people whose names have been on the screen here, these are the people who help to make this show happen week after week, month after month, year after year, and a huge thank you to all of you. And as you may have noticed, I did gift 50 memberships this particular show. So for all of those new members who were joined us live, now I think the way this works is the YouTube algorithm, I believe, will try to gift memberships to people who are watching live in the moment, and not just random people who are subscribed to the channel. I think. I don't actually know that for sure. But if that is true, it's one great reason to watch live because you could get a free membership to the show as I just randomly gift out memberships, or other people as they gift out memberships and share the love. And speaking of memberships, we're going to be going into our members only show in just a couple of minutes. The easiest way is to become a member of tomorrow at youtube.com/TMRO/join. Thank you everyone so much for watching. For all of my guests, if you hang here for just a moment, if you're willing to go into the member show, I will get you a link, but I have to go to the show, get the link, and come back. So give me a moment. And for everyone else, we'll see you on the member show, or we'll see you next week. Thank you.